All right, well, welcome everybody to another episode of Forging Brains podcast. I'm your host, Riley Kirkpatrick, with my co-host, Gavin Cooper. Today we got a pretty cool guest, and it's pretty cool timing on this one. We got Austin Edens with us. Austin is, at one time, you were the youngest world champion, correct, at Calgary?
No, Shane Carter was. I think he was 21.
Shane was?
Yeah, he was 21. I was
Okay.
24. So he beat me by 3 years.
By 3 years.
Yeah.
So it was 2003 when you won Calgary, and then now we got Calgary kind of coming back. We got Spruce Meadows coming up, and Austin is going to be the judge for Spruce Meadows for the first one. So pretty cool deal. Thanks for joining us, Austin.
You bet. It's exciting stuff, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
And so you kind of grew up shoeing horses with your dad, didn't you?
Yeah, my father's a farrier, and, he's world-class farrier. He just never has competed that much. He would go to our local competitions and all that, but he's kind of a perfectionist, and he trained me when I was young, growing up, and, he would make me perfect clinching. He would make me perfect different things, and then he kind of helped me out competing when I started out in Division I, and then kind of went on from there. Yeah.
How old were you when he started putting you to work?
I was probably 14 when I started clinching for him. I wanted to do it younger than that, but I was too small, and getting under horses when you're, a 12-year-old scrawny kid, it's not really safe. And, he wouldn't let me do it. And I was frustrated at that point, but about 14, I was big enough to get under the horses during the summer and really start working.
And you were eager that you wanted to go with him at that age.
Yeah, I was in the beginning. It was a good summertime job. I never wanted to shoe horses for a living. You see your dad working really hard and long hours, and he always encouraged me to go to college, which I did do. And, just in high school, I was, like, well, I want to do something else. But then I went to college and kind of started shoeing horses part-time, and I really loved it. And then I could go out and be outside with horses every day, or I could be stuck behind a desk, and I just opted to be outside. I'm an outdoors person.
What did you study?
What did you go to college for? Yeah.
I got a business degree. I wanted to do art, and I got a minor in art, actually. And
Really?
my father discouraged me from getting an art degree. He said that's about the most worthless degree you can get. And looking back, he's exactly right. But I always liked blacksmithing and, making jewelry or whatever, with my hands. So that's what drew me to it. But the business degree helped me more than anything, really.
Was he letting you do some blacksmith work before you got under horses?
Yeah, I would come home after school and tinker in the shop. I would make candle holders for the teachers at school and people in the community. And I had a business making railroad spike knives. I would twist the handles and do basket weaves and all kinds of different handles on railroad spike knives. And I made hundreds of those things in high school. And I wish I still had some. My dad might have some still, but I'd get sheaths made from the local leather guy, and I'll get $50 a piece for a polished out, perfect railroad spike knife. And I just.
How long was it taking you to make one?
Oh, it's hard to say back then, probably one a day, but I would, make them in batches, and I would do different handles. And of course, my family would support me, and had relatives from around the country, would order them. And then, and just people around. And Christmas time was a big time because people wanted to give it as a novelty gift, to their friends and stuff.
Yeah.
So I made a lot of those. And
That's because that was a time there was no easy way to advertise them at that time. Like it was just word of mouth that you were selling.
we couldn't have the Riley Kirkpatrick Instagram page or anything. We had,
Yeah.
but it was great. People would show other people, and I had friends and would show their parents, and they would order one, and things like that. In the community, and it, but it taught me a lot about forging.
Cool.
Trying to make a blade on a railroad spike knife and make it not bow and make it offset, make the handle straight, and different twists. and trying to keep that all straight teaches you a lot about forging.
Yeah.
There's no real way to hang on to it, and so it's got all the elements of forging in it except welding, but
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And did you have at that time like any special tongs or anything to hold on to them, or are you just using bolt tongs?
I just welded a tang onto the head of the railroad spike, and then that gave me.
And grind it off.
Yeah, and then I would grind it off, and then I would polish the head after I, broke the handle off. That worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's such a cool thing. Like, what made you think like I'll just do this production style right away?
I don't know. I just got excited about orders, just like anything, just like people wanted it, and it was good money for me back then. You could go make $3 an hour at McDonald's back then, or you could make $50 after school, so it was a no-brainer on my part, and so I just started that, and, and that forging, then I started competing, and, and I implemented all the forging I learned, making railroad spike knives and candle holders into my horseshoes later on.
Hey guys, do you like that Christmas morning feel of opening up a box, not knowing what's inside, feeling all sorts of excitement to find out what's inside? Well, let me tell you, you can feel that excitement every other month with a subscription to Farrier Box. Most farriers want to be competitive, whether it's attracting top-notch clients or winning contests. They take the tools and tricks of the trade used by today's top farriers and ship them to you so you have what you need to take your career to the next level. Go to farrierbox.com to start your subscription and use code BRAINS for 25% off your first month's box. I repeat, use code BRAINS for 25% off your first order. I know I like receiving packages, but I like it even more when it's a surprise, but also knowing I'm getting cool tools and tricks from Farrier Box. There's nothing out there like it in today's world of farriery, so you might as well go and level up with Farrier Box. Go to www.farrierbox.com and use code BRAINS for 25% off your first month's order. Thanks, guys. Let's get back to the podcast. Do you think that art degree that you had gotten kind of helped with something like your horseshoe making or even the blacksmithing after the fact of college?
Not really. My father's right. It was pretty, unless you're really going to get into art stuff, just. Mm-hmm. But it did help, seeing things like, the dominant, the subdominant in an art piece, and, appreciating painting and nature and stuff like that. But as far as it didn't teach you anything about business or life or anything. It just taught you about appreciating something, a piece of art, which is great. But it didn't really help me in my business aspect, really.
Yeah.
No, but
if that makes
seems
sense.
like art. Yeah, like art. It seems like most of the people that I talked to like went to school for art. It's more or less they just learned how to like explain it.
Yeah.
Like when
explain
they're
the
talking
art.
about it. Yeah, like they just learned how to like break it down. Like you just learned like anatomy of art and how to like say what you're feeling about it, like what it makes you feel.
You learn the form part, but you don't really learn the
pretty
function.
Hard.
Yeah. And I think it's just a natural eye, the art stuff is. You either see it or you don't. You just, like when you're making a hammer, what looks beautiful, and it's the same with horseshoes, and, things got to have flow, and it's just.
But sometimes it's hard, like, pinpointing it. You're like, something's fucked up with this. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, maybe if I had an art degree, I could be like, okay, this curve doesn't match this curve, and that's
what
why
I was kind of wondering.
Is looking really bad.
But I'm kind of that way with colors. I can't see colors. I don't know what matches on my outfits or anything like
really?
that. So I'm not good with colors at all.
I didn't know. But, like, your hammers are very artistic. Like, your machining work is very, like, man, it's got a lot of, like, cool.
But it's black and white. It's not. There's no colors.
That's true. That's true. No, but I think you see a little bit of that art come out when you when you're making stuff, because you never have, you don't, like, your whole entire tool range, there's nothing in it that's just a plain tool.
Yeah.
Like, that's just like,
There's something unique to them.
yeah.
And that's the fun part about making tools to me, is making something artistic and new and, flashy, and, make the curves, and, that's the fun part. And
That's something I've always wondered about, is like with tools, like how many different ways can we make them, like other than like just the black and white same style,
Yeah, and like Gary Darlow says,
different
it's only
variations.
that bottom bit and that top part you strike that's the only thing that really matters on a tool. What's in between doesn't really matter that much. And I think he's right.
Yeah.
No.
As long as everything lines up.
It might change, like, durability. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna. It ain't gonna matter how it runs. It
For
doesn't
sure.
seem like.
Nowadays, it's like sex appeal is a thing when people buy tools, right? They're like, oh, it looks really cool. Like, I want to buy this.
Yeah. They
And
want to
hopefully
look
it
good
works as
swinging
well.
a hammer. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Riley's hammers are so popular. They're wonderful hammers to use, but he takes really good photos. You put them out in nature, or you put them on the hood of an old truck, and you take oblique pictures, and you take some really good photographs. And I think that really drives demand, on products like that. And
Well, yeah, too, if you think about it, like, Yeti coolers is a cooler. It's not going to get much better or anything.
Yeah.
But everybody wants one, and a lot of it's like marketing. That's what drives it.
yeah,
And so it is interesting to me that you went to college for business and art, and in a way, that's exactly what you're doing.
yeah, it's kind of funny, but I think you're right.
I don't know if it was too worthless. I
Yeah.
don't want to disagree with your dad. I really like him, but
Yeah.
it's like, at the same hand, like, you've kind of narrowed into, like, man, you're running a business and you're making tool art, like everything
In a
you're doing right
roundabout
now.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got a little bit of art in it. It's like, I don't know if it was that worthless. So do you think going to college is what slowed you down? That you couldn't beat Shane on the youngest? You had to go
No,
to
I
school
think
for a little
it
bit?
helped me some. I was the first year I won the convention. I was still in college.
Okay.
But I kind of planned it where I could have all my classes like Tuesday, Thursdays, and then I took night classes, and so I made it where I could practice a lot, after school, or I could go shoe horses, and I went to Mark Milster's every weekend when I was in college. It was 4.5 hours up to Mark Milster's, and usually I could leave Thursday night, and I would get there, at midnight, and then I'd help him on Friday. We'd practice all weekend, and usually I'd drive back to college on Monday. And I did that for, 4 years, just almost every
Did you
weekend.
meet Mark like through your dad?
No, I met Mark at the Oklahoma contest, and he kind of, I met him. Well, I'll tell you a funny story. He denies this to this day, but when I was in high school, and Todd Walker and I were up there at the Oklahoma contest, and I had a portfolio of all my stuff, of all my blacksmithing projects and candle holders and, all my railroad spike knives and stuff. And Mark says, "Yeah, let me see that."
Before phones with pictures.
Yeah, so he's going through my portfolio, and he's like, "Oh man, that's great," and he's giving me a lot of compliments. And I just got done with a live shoeing, and I never shot a horse by myself. It was pretty much my first time. And he went over there and he picked up my horse's foot, and he looked at it and he says, "You better stick to blacksmithing," and dropped my foot and walked off.
Pretty rough then, huh?
Yeah, I remind him of that all the time. He denies it. But the next contest, it was after I got back from the exchange. He was judging it, and he invited me to his house after I competed at that contest. And from then on out, I went to his house every weekend after that. But I needed some help shoeing horses and stuff, and he saw that I had a forging ability, and then we got together doing the two-man at the convention, and then we just started partnering up from then on out.
Yeah, it lasted quite a while, that whole
Yeah.
partnership.
But yeah,
kinda saw that you had
he'll
the
always
drive.
deny he said that I should stick to blacksmithing.
Do you remember the first contest you went to?
Yeah, I was in high school and I went to the Texas contest, and I placed, fourth, fifth, and in some big forging classes. We used to have a lot of people in the Texas contest, but
Still is quite a bit of people.
yeah, and then I never really did that good, but then I started doing good after I went on the exchange, and that was when I was a sophomore in college, and I kind of got thrown into, well, Dad told me, he said, well, if you're going to learn to shoe horses, you might as well go on an exchange, and it's a good opportunity to see Europe and go over there for the summer, and so I went over there, and guys like Derek Gardner and Gary Darlow and, Spud Allison, and those guys helped me make shoes and helped my acceleration and my learning curve just really shoot straight up, and then when I got back.
Is that where you initially met Spud? Was on the exchange?
Yeah, I stayed with him for a couple weeks for sure, and he had.
How long were you there total?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, I was 19, 20 years old, and it was just the greatest experience. All you had to worry about is your suitcase. You didn't have to worry about anything else, and you just put your head down and go to work every day. Everyone treated you like a king. They took you to all the best restaurants and, took you out to eat and, and took you to see all the castles and then next day you just work until 5 o'clock and then they would entertain you again, so it was really a great experience. You never had to worry about tacking shoes on or lame horses or anything like that. You just went and had fun. It was great. I highly recommend it.
Did you get to compete while you were over there?
Yeah, I competed in the apprentice classes. They really wouldn't let you shoe horses, so that was great. Now I would compete against Stephen Bean in the apprentice classes back then. So we.
No kidding.
Yeah. I remember I was in a class and he was sitting there watching me, and then he ran over there and looked at my shoes real quick, and we would kind of go back and forth at each contest, and that was a lot of fun, and he was maybe a second or third year apprentice. No, he was a third year apprentice, I think, when I was over there. But,
wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You guys kind of came up on the rise together then, I guess, around the same time then, huh?
Yeah, and then, we kind of competed together, and we went to Calgary and competed at convention and Stoneleigh and all that. Yeah, so we kind of came up about the same time. And then I retired, and he just kept going.
What would be some advice for people that are looking into like the foreign exchange that you would give somebody?
I would just recommend going and applying for it. It's the best thing you can do. And just be humble and learn from everyone, and it's just everyone had something to offer to teach, and just absorbing all that information. And absorbing that information just makes you a better competitor and a better horseshoer. Just even if you don't implement it into your system, you've tried it, and you can. If I'm competing and I don't agree with the way someone wants something done, but I did it working for those people, then it can really benefit you sometimes, and just the exposure to all different shoeing methods, just really makes you a more well-rounded farrier, in my mind.
Sounds pretty well put.
Yeah.
I don't know how but anybody could go wrong by not doing it.
Yeah, I mean.
And you went through it through the AFA, correct?
I did. Yeah, I went through the AFA, and actually I was in college at the time, and I missed the first 2 weeks of the next semester because it was the last year of Clothesburn Edwards contest, and I wasn't going to miss it. And that was '99, and I really wanted to go to that. So it was just, I had permission, and it was a terrible semester. I had upper level accounting classes and stuff, and it was a tough semester, but it was worth it.
Yeah, I bet when you look back, you probably remember going to that contest more than you remember having to like crunch for that semester when you got
Oh
back,
yeah,
huh?
oh yeah. And I was so glad to see those guys. It's Mark and Craig and Jason Smith on the team, and so it was great to see. And my parents came over for the contest too, and so it was good to see everyone. And you're kind of homesick anyway at that point, and then all your
Yeah.
American friends and parents come and stuff. So it was great.
So
Have
when
you?
you came home, was that just like fire under your ass, ready to go keep competing then?
Yeah, I had a lot of experience under my belt, and I learned a lot, and so then I just started hitting the contest when I got home, and yeah, that was just. But going to a contest almost every weekend really primes you for competing, and that's what those guys have such an advantage. They can just go to contests, every weekend in the summer. You go sleep on somebody's living room floor, and get up and have a shoe and go, and then next weekend you go, sleep in somebody else's living room floor. That's what they all would do, and it's just hard to compete with when those guys just have go after go after go, and it just makes you a more seasoned
Yeah, and like
competitor.
the
Yeah.
size of England is so much smaller. It's like not even the size of Texas, right? Whereas that
Yeah,
they have all those contests like going almost every weekend. It's not like we would have to fly to another state in order to make it every weekend type thing. They can just drive 2 hours, right?
exactly. And it's just
It's just so much more convenient.
and that's where Mark and I started improving. Is we made our own little contest every weekend. We would have goes against each other. And that's where you really have to.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a setting where you can go to a contest every weekend, you have to make your own mini little contest against two guys or one guy or whoever it is. And I would go to Mark's and he would whip the shit out of me one weekend. And I'd go home and practice, and I'd come back and I'd beat him. So it was a back and forth, but we did this. He'd get better, I'd get better, and the mark on the wall kept getting higher and higher. And then when we'd go to the real contest, it was, we'd do a lot better because we were so used to having the goes.
Yeah.
When you guys went to the actual contest, did it end up just being kind of between you and Mark, anyways?
Yeah, it would, but Craig Craig was in the mix at that time, so we would,
Okay.
but we would all
True
be,
that.
and then, guys like Jim Quick, would come periodically. And so, I mean, there was really good guys, but, we would be in the mix for sure. But it was a lot of fun. One of the years at Calgary, it was Craig and Mark and Jim Quick and myself in the top four, during the whole contest, and it was a lot of fun, because we just competed against each other all the time. And
Just constantly raising the bar.
yeah, and it's just, you can't go to a rodeo and not practice, and you have to go to, you have to rope and rope and rope in order to do good, so it's kind of the same concept. But
Right.
and having time to goes really helps, taking 3 hour goes, is not practical either,
Yeah.
So how are you practicing at home in between then? Were you breaking things down into elements more, or were you still just practicing the whole goes?
At first, I practiced the whole goes. I really think that helps you with your timing. Just knowing how to have 5 minutes at the end of the class to check your nail holes, flat, pairs, things like that. Just knowing where you need to be 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in, 40 minutes in, etc. But later on, I started just practicing elements. I started just, making heel cocks and branches and glue on shoes and just not really finishing anything. Just I was, seasoned enough just to kind of figure out the parts, but in the beginning it was definitely full goes, timed goes, and just knowing where I needed to be on the clock at any time.
How long do you
How
think
much?
that span between like you and Mark practicing together went? Like as far as like you going there every weekend? Was that just like a couple years type deal, or
That was
was it
4
fairly
years.
short-lived?
4 years, 5
Oh,
years.
4 years.
Yeah, we went. It's all during my college, and after I got back, graduated college, we continued to do that. And I would help him shoe horses, and then we'd just have the goes, and we got where we would just, when it got Calgary time, we would turn our phones off a week out and just stay in the shop and practice. We were that serious about it, and just we would lie to all our clients and tell them,
Because you guys were like,
we're out of time.
were you guys together or like at your own shop and shutting your phones off, like because you didn't want the other person?
I would go to
see?
Mark's, 4 or 5 days ahead of time, and that way we could have the 2-man goes and practice, and we'd have head-to-head goes before we'd leave.
Yeah.
So that really helped us just prepare. And then, there's nothing worse than trying to get all your horses shod the day before you're going to a big contest like that, devoted all that time, and then you're working until 9 o'clock, and then you're going off and competing, unprepared, your tools aren't ready and all that. So we tried to solve that problem by just giving us plenty of time to prepare. It's one thing I always admired about Jake Engler. He would shoe horses on the way to the airport, on the way back, and then he would always excel and just win everything, and he would just, he always amazed me like that. But I always had to prepare, make sure everything was exactly right.
I was just talking to him this weekend, and he said he's flying home, and he's like, I got to stop over here and shoe a couple on the way home, and then I'll be on my way home. I was like, geez, man, it just never ends.
Oh, he's a savage. So
Yeah. Can't believe it.
Yeah, we worked together a lot.
So how many years had you been going to Calgary before you won it?
I was Rookie of the Year in 2000, and then I won it in 2003, and I went one more time in 2004. And that's when I kind of hung it up at that point. So I went 5 years total.
5 years. How prepared did you feel that year that you went?
Pretty prepared. The year before I was more prepared, and I lost it by a little bit. I was reserved. The first year I was, in the top 10, and then I was third, then I was second, and then I won it. But it was just, it was.
Who won it the year that you were reserve?
Darren Bazin, I think. I'm pretty sure Darren Bazin won it, but he was always hard to get around. He was, it's sad he's not around, international competing much, but he was always a really nice guy, and he was always really fast and clean work, and just, he was always hard to beat. And then he won it in 2004 the next year too. And that was when they gave away the gold cock and wedge, and and that was pretty
solid
cool.
gold.
Oh yeah.
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 Oh man,
solid
I'd
gold
like to see that.
tool. Yeah, solid gold tool and fuller cock and wedge, and it was pretty sweet.
Who made it?
I don't remember who made it, but it was, somebody up there in Canada. But it was worth like $25,000 at the time.
It was like
a gold. Yeah.
It was like a jeweler made it or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't think it was a horseshoer that made it.
No. It was a jeweler, and then he can't even display it on his coffee table or anything because he's got to put it in a safe deposit box because
it's gold. Yeah.
It's gold. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Like, if we were making the shoe and like we're handling it in a forge, and like, oh fuck, I hope I don't burn it up or something, and then there goes all the gold.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was 14 karat or 10 karat.
You were sticking a gold
was,
one in the Forge Master.
Yeah, but it was a full size cock and wedge, so pretty amazing. But yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
because they also did a gold J Sharp hammer one year, didn't they?
I don't recall that.
I want to say it was like a gold scoop side J Sharp hammer. So I remember seeing one. And it was like
I saw a few Damascus ones, but I don't remember seeing a gold one. But I could be wrong, but for sure.
Gosh, that's cool.
Man.
Yeah,
I would love to have a prize like that.
Yeah,
who wouldn't?
Yeah,
it's actually worth something.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sad part is it's worth something melted down.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not so much in the shoe form.
Yeah.
A horseshoer is not going to pay that for it.
No.
No.
Not at whatever auction.
Yeah.
Oh man. So what do you think? What do you think having a world champion means for our horseshoeing community?
I think it's really a great thing, and I think David Verini said it best. You you know, to have mountain efforts, you got to have a base camp, and it really helps everyone at base camp, and just to give everyone something to strive for, and and I know it pays a lot of money, and that's controversial and all that, but I think it's just so cool to have a world championship again, and it was just those are some of my fondest memories going to the contest and competing at it, and even when I didn't compete anymore, just watching it and seeing who was crowned world champion every year was just really a cool thing, and I think it creates a lot of buzz just in the whole farrier industry as a whole. Not only in the competing world, but just in the farrier world as well. And I think it just brings a lot of awareness to our trade. And saying there's a world champion blacksmith really helps out. And I think it's a cool deal.
Do you remember some of the emotions the year that, like, how you felt the year you won it?
Yeah, it's just, it's weird. You just
Like proud of yourself
on this high, and then you kind of have this postpartum depression after you do it. It's like it's just a weird feeling. But I think you just amp yourself up so much to that point. You're just practicing and going sleepless nights, and you just got all this adrenaline flowing. And I would always be behind the tent puking, because I was just so nervous before my goes, and
Really?
and, yeah. Oh, yeah, they made fun of me. Jim Quick would put barf bags on my anvil before the goes because he knew I was out there puking, because I was so worked up.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was an ongoing joke.
I did not know that.
Yeah, conveniently there'd always be one on the airplane before, it came to the contest. But yeah,
Was it like almost a little bit of like a letdown after you won it? Like, did you think that it was gonna like feel different?
No, not at all. It's just a total normal part of the process. Like athletes and go through that, and it just because you ring that bell and then you're like, now what? And you think that's what you're striving for, and you think when I hit that, it's just going to be the end all be all, and everything's going to be wonderful. But you're still shoeing that horse that's trying to kick your head off and eat mud, and and you still have the same problems, and you still have the same clients doubting you, and it just it's the same, you still have the same problems, it's just not when you're anointed world champion blacksmith.
It's not like winning the Super Bowl and you get hundreds of millions of dollars and
get to go to Disneyland, but it is a cool thing to be able to say you're a world champion or something. But being able to give back after you do that, because you're asked to do a lot of clinics and and teaching and all that. That's what it's all about, And I did a bunch of clinics after I won that, and that was the most rewarding part. Is just meeting all the people and and trying to teach basics and and spread the word of good farriery and all that. It's the most rewarding part.
It's so crazy, like that part you said that you still have the same clients doubting you, because you think you're like. Like when I'm talking to clients, I'm like, listen, this is what all the champions do. But like now all of a sudden you're like, I'm the champion. You should listen to me. Like I'm the guy. But they're still like, Joe down the road said that those heels gotta stay.
Yeah. Yeah. Dylan and I were talking about that just before this podcast, and he was talking about clients doubting him, and I said, what you did at Edgewood is just remarkable. Only a few farriers in this world can do just a beautiful job like that, and it just, you're always going to have people doubting you, and it's a part of it, and you just have to work for those that have confidence in you and in your ability, and it makes your life a lot easier.
But is there that little bit of doubt in yourself ever there, like that you're like, you know, like it's easy for me to be like, well, I know I got a lot of shit to work on because I'm not close to a world champion. But all of a sudden you're a world champion. You're like, I still feel like I
Oh,
got some stuff to work on. You know what I mean? Like you still feel like other guys might be better than you.
Yeah, and, you know, like Mark Milster and myself, and we're always real hard on ourselves, you know, and I'm always cussing at myself, just saying I should do better. And that's what gives me my drive, is just afraid of failure. And just I tell myself that's stupid, you know, and try to correct my mistakes and try not to make any mistakes. But that's, you know, self-doubt is what I constantly have in everything I do. And, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but if I go into something confident, I just everything falls apart, and I have to be scared going into something, and that's why I would always be so nervous. I was afraid of failure, and I wouldn't let myself fail. And, you know, if you
Even though you have prepared yourself so much.
Yeah, you know, if you just go into and shrug your shoulders and like, well, if I fail, I fail. You know, you're not going to do any good. But if you're like, I cannot fail. I cannot let that clip slide over the edge of the anvil too far or not enough. That clip's got to be perfect. You know, you're gonna make sure that happens. You know, but you're gonna be intense when that happens. You know, so there's a fine line. You know, it's just. I used to be really intense, you know. It's just, is it worth it? I don't know.
I would say it's pretty worth it. I mean, look where you won a world champion. You were on the AFA team. Like, how many times were you on the AFA team?
4 times, but my nickname was Captain Asshole too, you know. So it's just like you.
I feel your pain, man. Right there.
Captain Asshole.
Yeah, Gavin can vouch. I am not the nicest guy to be on a team with.
Maybe that's what we'll have to title this episode.
Yeah.
Austin Eden's Captain Asshole.
That's okay. I'm okay with it.
That's amazing.
Oh, I like
and
that.
it's so funny because you truly are like I think you're such a nice guy. You know what I mean? But you're super straightforward. I guess that is true.
Todd doesn't think so. Todd and I were on the team together, you know, and Todd's Mr. Laid Back, Mr. Cool, you know, and I always was intense, and you know, when we would be partnered up, you know, one day I showed up to his shop and he had a picture of me with a bunch of knives thrown at it. He was throwing darts at my picture. You know?
He was mad.
Yeah.
That's pretty far. That's pretty far.
Yeah. So
that's taking it to the extreme.
Yeah. I think he coined the term Captain Asshole, actually. So
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So was it pretty like intense when you guys went over to Stoneleigh then? Like
yeah.
Temperatures were pretty high at that time.
No, it was pretty good. We had fun when we went to Stoneleigh, and you know, it was just we always had a good time. You know, we had, you know, Todd and John McNerney and Bill Poor. You know, you add Bill Poor to the mix. You know, it's a lot of fun. You know, so.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
That's what we hear.
Yeah.
Yes. I bet. Yeah. I bet some of the Bill Poor stories are insane.
Yeah, we can't repeat them on this podcast, but
yes, hey, not even this podcast.
Yeah.
Appropriate. So good. But you guys have like pretty decent teams going over there with you, Bill, Todd, and John. Like, had to be feeling like you guys were going to go over there and do pretty good, but.
Yeah,
man, pretty hard.
And we were all young at that
you guys
point.
were practicing pretty hard.
Yeah, we practiced, but we were kind of young and inexperienced because it was in '01. It was me and Craig and Milster and Quick, you know, and then those guys took a back seat, and then it was just McNerney and Todd and Bill, and you know, so we were all working together for the first time, you know, so we were all kind of green, But a couple of years later, we built some momentum and started doing pretty good. But that first year together was just a struggle because it was just, I was the captain. I didn't know how to manage people. I was the new guy the year before, and then all of a sudden, I'm the captain and I'm the experienced one. And that was really a hard learning curve for me. And I didn't know how to manage the team or, coach the guys or anything like that, and it took me a couple of years to kind of figure that part out. And that's a big part of it.
What are some tips that you learned along those lines of how to manage a team and to get everybody working together?
You have to just find everyone's strengths mainly and weaknesses as well, and you got to, put people where they're strongest. Bill would always go first, because Bill didn't have the attention span to go through a whole go, but he gave you 50 minutes of the best go of his life, and then he was going to go sit down. But, he was just, and that was Bill, and we knew it, so Bill, you're going first, and then, he could be done, and then he's out of everybody's way, and he did a beautiful job and scored nines all the way across, and then, the other three guys could shoe the horse. So just things like that, just knowing where to put everyone and go from there, and just seeing where everybody's strengths are more than anything. And
did you learn some different ways of how to talk to everybody? Of some tricks of how to not come off maybe as much of an asshole.
Yeah, and that's one thing, it's just there's a fine line, you have to learn to encourage people when they need to be encouraged, and people learn differently as well. You have to give people compliments that do better when they're complimented, and if you criticize someone that can't take criticism, it doesn't work either. So it's kind of their personality type. And learning.
How do you think a way to go about that? So you say somebody that can't take criticism, how do you reckon, a way to try to get that person to get better? What's a good way to go about that?
Yeah, or see the things that everybody else is seeing.
I think you just pick their strong points and you go off of that. I'm not going to name any names, but I have a really good friend that, you criticize him and he just kind of clams up and he doesn't do good. But you give him some compliments and you point out some good things that he's doing and kind of phrase it in a different way, and he really excels. And I think people just learn differently and respond from criticism and compliments in a different way. Me, I want to know what I'm doing wrong, and I don't want to do that thing wrong again. And I don't care if it's right. I don't want a pat on the back when I'm practicing. I want a pat on the back, at the competition on the award stand is what I want. I don't want to compliment when I'm practicing, and it does. So, but what's good for me is not good for everyone else, and so you have to learn people's personality types, for sure.
Yeah, but it's super hard when you it's just a knee-jerk reaction. You see him doing something, you just want to rip out, what the fuck are you doing? That's not smart. Yeah. You're just instantly coming out with how you think about yourself, but you have to put on the brakes. Okay, that's not gonna go good. Yeah. They didn't like that.
And that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing I like working with Jake. Jake and I can be blunt with one another, and all the time, it's great, because I don't get offended. He doesn't get offended, and, it works well, but other people, you can't do that, so it's, you have to kind of choose your words carefully.
It's hard, especially, I think we're in more of defense mode now as ever as horseshoers with the internet of because just people put on a picture and they're just ready to start defending it, right away. And it's you should, if you put on something, you probably should be able to defend it, but it's it's hard. Just half the people commenting on it can't do shit anyways. They can't do the things that they're telling you to do, or they couldn't do any better of a job. But then you might miss out on some of those better comments in there from people that are actually trying to help out.
And you just accept criticism from everyone. Yeah, just take it with a grain of salt, and you just kind of have to weed through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. People have a hard time with that though. It's a
Yeah.
funny thing.
Well, I was talking with Jake this weekend, and a question that I asked him was, do you remember what some of the hardest contests, like some of the hardest classes were, like through the years of competing? And he said the classes at Calgary were some of the toughest he's ever had to do. Is that kind of like the same for you, or do you remember what some of the toughest classes or contests are that you've had to do?
Yeah, Calgary was the toughest, I'd have to say, because it was just grueling. You'd have a go in the morning, and then you have to go in the evening. But what was the kicker was the last day. You had to shoe a pair of fronts, 3/4 fuller, in an hour. So imagine how you feel after that kind of go. You just, at a normal contest, you do that one go a day. And then 30 minutes later, you have to turn around and do it again on the back feet, 3/4 fuller in an hour.
Holy shit.
So it just, you don't think you could possibly get it done when you start that second go. You're just spent. Everything you had was on that first go, and you have to turn around and do it one more time. And that's probably the hardest thing to do, for sure.
So do you think like some of these classes where we do like 1 foot and a specimen in an hour or 70 minutes, do you think that could be shortened, or is that still kind of like an ample amount of time?
No, I think it's a good amount of time. It just, with the shorter time limits, you have bigger and greater mistakes because you don't have time to fix things. It's just like, I was at the AFT practice a few weeks ago, and they were running the Calgary goes, and you got a mass lot, fully fullered shoe on the foot, fully fullered roadster in an hour. You don't have time to fix anything. It's if your quarters missed and your heels missed, it stays. You have a couple. You might have one more trip to the foot, but you better have it right the first time, so that the mistakes are amplified when the time limits are that short. But I think when you make it too hard at the normal WCBs, when you have a lot of cat 1s and 2s and 3s mixed in, I think you discourage good horseshoeing when you make the time limits too hard. They need to be at Calgary so you can kind of separate everyone, and you're crowning a world champion, and they should be. But at the other contests, we're trying to do good horseshoeing and promote good horseshoeing. And, you're splitting hairs sometimes, but that's just the way it's got to be. You got to give the guys up and coming a chance. Yeah. And it's about education for those guys. So if you're just trying to make them do unrealistic things in an hour, or less, you're not really helping them. So you got to help those guys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's a good point, especially because WCB is kind of a different beast where it has the Cat 1s, Cat 2s all mixed in there in the pot, where Calgary and Spruce Meadows is just going to be the top guys. It shouldn't be be any lower cats mixed up in there. They should all kind of be the upper end of the echelon. And
and the whole reason for competing is...
We hear this thrown out all the time now. Yeah, keep going.
Well, I'm just saying the whole reason for competing is for education, and it doesn't matter if Chris Madrid or Stan Mullen wins, the last contest. It's all about all 80 guys going that are learning how to build shoes, and it's education. That's the whole point of this competing. It's not to promote anyone's ego. And crowning a champion is great, and you got to do that. But the whole point of the WCB is education through competition, and I firmly believe that.
No, that was a perfect transition comment there. That you hear this said all the time now, or like commented all the time. And it's not just one person. I'm not just calling out Jim Quick here, but it's like you hear this thing saying that like these contests are blacksmithing contests now. They're not horseshoeing contests. Well, like, and it's like it seems like we get like really segregated on like, well, there's forging and then there's horseshoeing. Like they can't go together or something. It's like, and we always hear the same arguments on our side of like, oh, one hand washes the other. It all kind of goes together, but you hear like contests have changed and everything, and I haven't been around long enough to know like if contests have changed or not. I've just been around for WCB. That's been my competition world, and so like from your side, you've been around for quite a while. That you've seen convention when it was real prime, Calgary when it was real prime. Do you think that has like that we changed in our ways of competition a lot? And do you think that the blacksmithing part of our competitions are hurting our horseshoeing side?
No, I think it's a skill test for a certain criteria. And that criteria has evolved over time. But I was a little upset when they changed the convention fit. It was a dime's length and a dime's width forever. And it was criticized and saying, well, that's not good horseshoeing. That's not the way we shoe horses every day. But it's a certain criteria that you have to meet when you're competing. And if you can do that, you can do anything. So you have to make the contest objective. If it's subjective and you just pick your friends as a winner, it doesn't do any good. So you have to have a certain skill test, and the blacksmithing elements are a part of that skill test. If you can create crisp corners on a bar shoe, you can create any kind of bar shoe. And I firmly believe what Jim Poor says, that square corners don't belong on a horse's foot. But if you can make a square corner, you can make a round one. So it's just, it's all of those elements are a skill test, and creating that skill test is what makes us better horseshoers on a day-to-day basis.
And do you think that we like the contests have changed a lot since back then? Do you think or do you think we're still kind of in the same route a little bit?
No, I think contests are pretty much the same. The WCB's changed things for sure. Before you would have the local contest with Division 1, 2, and 3, and so on. And then now it's, the WCB, we're working out of a coke fire, and everybody's making the same shoe. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. But learning how to work out of a coke fire, I think, is really a good skill set to learn, and a lot of people would argue, with that, of course. But just learning to run a fire and learning heats and a system and all that, I think is just, I think it's the same. It's just maybe spun a little bit different way, but I think the mark on the wall is gradually going up, and I think Craig has a lot of credit for doing that, because he creates a lot of enthusiasm, and and the more people you get in that pool and the more contests you can have, you just constantly making the bar go up. And the only way you can make the bar go up is make better and more precise shoes, if that makes any sense. You just can't be making, 3/4 fuller, shoes on, and I'm a firm believer that making a 3/4 fuller shoe on the foot is the hardest test you can do, because it's just putting all the basics into a shoeing job is almost impossible. And that's my opinion.
Do you think there's a specific way that they should be fit up when you say that, like the test?
I think a hunter test is just
versus like that
a holy grail of a fit. It either fits or it doesn't. On a hunter test, just penny on a penny. I always loved it when we'd go to the classic and on Cat 6, and the hunter day was always my favorite. Because it just, if it came, it was great. But if you cut the wrong amount of steel at the guillotine, you lost. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
I think
about on a pleasure fit, you have a lot of leeway.
Suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you can.
Where it's like,
what's the difference?
Classic Roadster Day and Draft Day, it could be kind of anywhere, but Tool and Folder Day has to be like right there. There's no.
Yeah, I mean, on a pleasure fit, you can be 3/8 long or 1/2 inch long. What's the difference, But you're 1/16 off on the hunter day, you're out. So it's a big difference to me.
Well, it's huge. I think it's a good point to make about like the WCB is that we usually when we're shoeing the horse there, like it gets down, it's always a basic shoe on the horse.
Yeah.
Like we never have anything too crazy going on the horse. It's either like concave, 3/4 fuller, or a plain stamp. And so it's like the other parts of it are just kind of a test to get to see if you are good enough to just put a plain stamp on a horse. Like if you can't make a nice other shoe in the top 40, you can't get on to the plain stamp part. Like they're not going to let you go nail onto a live horse.
Right.
Yeah, and I never try to get crazy.
When was the? Yeah, keep going.
I never try to get crazy when I'm judging a contest. I just want a plain shoeing job, and that's the hardest test. Just to put all your basics into that. And putting all the bells and whistles on there are just distractions, really, and just plain old shoeing job.
So basically, you want to try to aim for like center of stock, then fitting them up.
Yep, center stock, fit up, perimeter fit. It's what I like to see. And no second trims, fit what you trim, and that's a tough test for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough.
Is there certain things you're looking for in your knife work when you're going to judge a foot?
Usually less is more, so I try to be conservative. And if a judge comes to a foot and they look at it and say, "Oh, this foot's a little long. This guy should have knifed out more," he might dock you, 1/10 of a point, 2/10 of a point. But if you take it short and you scalp it and he thinks it's too short, he's going to dock you a point or, point and a half. He's going to be really mad. So you have to be careful and err on the side of caution when it comes to knife work. And, it's one of those things where everybody leaves a little bit different length, so you have to be just conservative on your trim, and just don't do anything to hang yourself.
One of the hard parts for me to decide on when I'm trimming a foot is the bars, how much to trim the bars. And I feel like I probably over trim them each time. Because you see a lot of like pictures of like guys like Stan and Dylan, like the bars pretty much go all the way to the frog. Like they just draw one straight line and goes all the way down.
Yeah.
So like how do you determine how much bar to trim or to leave there, or where they should terminate at, or if they shouldn't?
If I have a good strong bar, I'll leave it. But I don't get real picky about that as well. And that's where you just get in the subjective part of the judging. It's like, do you leave the bar or do not? As long as it's clean, neat, and, if that bar is about to flake out and you're trying to stand it up, I can take my thumbnail to it and flick it out. It probably doesn't need to be there. But I don't get too hung up on details like that. Medial lateral balance, you put 100 horseshoers in the room and, you ask them, you're going to get 100 different opinions. So I don't get too crazy on medial lateral balance either, But flat's important because flat's flat. But is this foot high outside, high inside? As long as it's within reason, if it's, 1/4 inch high outside when you go to pick it up, yeah, you're going to dock the guy. But, if it's, 1/8 inch high on the outside, according to your opinion, I'm not going to dock them for that. Just because then it gets into a theory contest. And other horseshoers I work with all the time, they're world-class horseshoers. They disagree on balance. So how are we all going to agree on balance at a contest? We're not. And
Yeah. It's not going to happen.
No.
So is that something like, obviously that's something like you and Spud are going to have to like talk over before, right? Or you guys judge completely separate and then they're added together?
I think we're going to judge together. I think it's going to be more fair and transparent that way. We kind of talked about that a little bit, but and that's as long as everybody's on the same page and talking about things. I think it'll be the most fair. Just when when people don't see what's going on and all that, I like the open judge it in front of everyone and being transparent, and that way, just, and being fair. The contest being fair is the most important thing to me, and not being biased. Everyone's biased, and it's hard to overcome that.
Yeah.
We're all biased. We all have people we like, and we all have people we don't like, and we all have people we want to see do good, and vice versa. But trying to take the subjectivity out of it and be fair to everyone is the most important thing to me. And trying to overcome my own biases is what I've been thinking about a lot, for sure.
I bet. Like, do you have that when you go up to every single foot? Like, when you're trimming your day to day, are you thinking about how you would judge that?
Not really. It's my nip and burn. I don't really judge that. So just trying to get them done. It's been really hot at home, so we just try to get them done. So when it's 108 outside, you don't really care about 2 rast strokes here. You're just gonna get it done.
I could see that. I wouldn't be going out to shoot horses if it was 108.
Yeah.
I'd be staying home. Oh man.
Yeah.
Do you have
Not
any
even fun going
experience
to the shop.
Do you have any experience working with Spud outside of the exchange that you did years ago?
I don't. I've seen him a lot of times, and I like Spud, and we hung out a lot, but ever since then, I don't think we've worked together. So I'm excited about judging with him. I know Milster's judged with him and really liked him, and Hausman, one of my good friends, he judged with him as well, and he was really high on judging with Spud. So I'm excited about it. I've heard nothing but great things about judging with Spud, so I'm excited about it.
That's good.
I bet. Yeah, that's a pretty exciting thing overall. So how we kind of skipped over a little bit, but when was the first year you guys put Cat 6 together?
Oh, this is going to make a liar out of me, but maybe 2012, maybe? I don't know, something like that. But I have to go back and look. But yeah, I can't even remember. But
did you guys win it that first year you went?
No, we didn't win it for a couple of years. I think we were second a couple of times, and then we finally won it. But yeah, it was a couple tough years. It was the WCB team had a really good year one year, and they might have won. I'm trying to think.
Did you ever try to shoot for making the WCB team, or was it because you were kind of focused on the AFT, or that came afterwards?
Oh, the WCB came well after I was done competing. Really, WCB team.
I see.
WCB came into existence about 2007. So I was pretty much done in 04. I competed a little bit in 05, 06, but yeah, I was pretty much a has-been by that point. And then we decided to do the classic together. So, but
yeah.
Yeah, how many years did you guys win the classic?
3 maybe, something like that. But
okay.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were, and those were always our funnest times. We'd always get together and and have half a dozen practices and and choreograph everything, and those were my funnest times competing.
Get everything.
Just getting together.
That was like my second big contest I ever went to was Classic. And you guys showed – I hadn't met anybody pretty much yet, and you guys showed up like rock stars in this like blacked out Suburban – like rolling in like right before the go, just like Austin wouldn't. At that time you wouldn't talk to anybody. You were just outside pacing, like for the whole entire time.
I was puking. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that now, but I was like, man, that guy is serious right now. He won't even talk to anybody. He is in the zone.
Yeah.
Shit.
And it was so
But then I
hard with
remember
those
you
guys.
guys like laid down the work. It was like, wow, I didn't even know horseshoeing could be this good. Like I had
didn't
no
want to.
idea.
It was so hard being on that team because you didn't want to let anybody down, because you knew the other guys were going to throw down a good job, and it was so hard just to not screw up, and I was the bill puller, I was the one that had to go first and get out of everybody's way. And, it was my job to get my 8/8 all the way across and get my job done in 50 minutes and then get out of the way of the other guys. And, Jake and Milster and Gene could, spend time getting points. And it didn't matter how long I took. If I took 30 minutes or 3 hours, I was going to get the same scores anyway. So I might as well just get out of everybody's way fast and then let them guys get their points and work their magic. And then, so that was always fun, just trying to figure out how to choreograph that and, and maximize the most amount of points we could get.
In the last couple of years you guys were doing it, were you guys pretty much sticking to the same plan by that point?
Yeah, we changed a little bit. I know Gene got tired of doing the right front, and he wanted to do a hind. So him and Milster switched, and Milster came and did a front foot with me, and then Gene and Jake were doing the hinds. And we changed the order a little bit, and kind of a little bit here and there. But the last couple of years we did it, we didn't practice that many times. We kind of had a system, and our lives got busy, and it was just harder and harder to get together. And we pretty much knew the system. And the last year we went, we might have practiced once or twice, and then we went. And that's kind of how it goes. It's just like you just other things get important in your life, and that kind of gets put on the back burner, and and went from there.
So you've kind of came a little bit like I think it's funny that you said before that you didn't really want to shoe horses for a living, and it kind of seems like now you're trying to do more things that aren't horseshoe. Like you're still staying in the horseshoeing realm, but you're not trying to get underneath of a horse as much. And so it seems like you've been in the shop more. What made you finally just take that leap and start going that direction?
My back more than anything. I love shoeing horses, but I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago my back got really bad, and it's kind of a wake-up call when your body hurts all the time. And so I love making things in the shop, and I love shoeing horses, but it's just kind of a point where at the end of the day, your body hurts and you're miserable and you can't sleep, and it just, that kind of, pushed me to make that transition to work in the shop more, and I love working with my hands, and I love creating things and, designing things on the CAD and all that. But so that kind of pushed me in that direction, because I knew my back wasn't going to last much longer. And but it was that kind of sucked too, because I love shoeing horses, and I love going out and seeing my clients and working on horses and all that. And so I pretty much quit shoeing horses for a year and a half, 2 years, and then now I'm back to shoeing horses again. Started shoeing horses last summer, so I'm back at it.
Did you have an accident or something that hurt your back, or it just started hurting just from years of work?
No, just stupidity. When I was on the team, I would just shoe horses. I would binge shoe horses for 3 days, and then go to a team practice, and then go to a clinic, and get home late at Sunday night and up at 5 o'clock in the morning going to shoe horses, and long hours. And my father told me, he said, you better pace yourself, boy, and I'm like, I was 21, 22, invincible, but I just blew my back out,
Good old days.
And I got a bad back as it is, and then just abusing it, and the traveling, more than anything. You know, I went to Florida for 8 years, and you know, just jumping on an airplane and trying to shoe all your horses and get back home, and you know, just pushing it, and then you're behind when you get home. So it's just thinking your body's invincible, and then one day you wake up and you can't get off the floor. It's just a real wake-up call, you know, for sure.
Do you think you have a good balance now?
Yeah, I work in the shop some, and I limit myself to 3 horses a day, and I do that 3 or 4 days a week, and I do the best job I can, and I think that's a good system for me. I'm in a good area. I can get good money to shoe horses, and I don't have to kill myself. If I do any more than that, my back really pays for it. And so having that balance is really something. It's taken a lot of work to figure out, but I'm liking where it is now, for sure.
And so were you already doing stuff on the CAD before you decided to start making tools then?
Yeah, I did CAD stuff in high school and did a few CAD competitions, and then kind of went from there. I did a little bit in college, and Jim Porcon got me into it. You know, I would go to Jim's and kind of help him with his CAD, and you know, Jim has his own redneck system of how to make things work in his shop. You know, and he's the smartest guy I know. You know, he just
Yeah.
he knows he has to take 50 thousandths here and 50 thousandths there, and just, you know, he knows exactly what he needs to do. But to do it properly on the computer is not his strong suit. So, you know, I would, you know, work on the computer with him, and that was a lot of fun. And he's the one that kind of got me into the machine. Well, he is the one that got me into the machine, and him and Jim Keith. And just learning from them and just taking the new modern CAD systems and implementing those, and you know, it's been a lot of fun. It's so much fun to create something on the computer screen and then go throw it in the mill and then go make that, you know, and figuring out the process.
Is that kind of how you got to start? Because I've seen you starting to, like, on your social media, like you'll post these, like, I don't know what you call it. Is it the CAD of the foot, and then you've like made a horseshoe on it? Is that kind of the same concept then? And what gave you that idea?
You know, it all starts with a 2D sketch, you know, and you create a shoe, and then you create these different lofts, and it just, you know, and that foot model's been a lot of fun trying to create, because it just, you do one thing to it and it turns into a Picasso, you know, it just, and then you have to go back and fix it, you know, and because everything on that model has a relation with another thing, you know, so if you change one thing, it's going to change that relation with that other thing, and then it's going to flip something. And so that's something that's been a lot of fun, just trying to create something.
It's like it creates a distortion.
Yeah, so it's just, but trying to create a free-form object like a horse's foot it's been a lot of fun. And it's a great teaching tool, I think, demonstrating like the center of stock, for instance. You know, I shod horses for 10 years before I knew exactly what center of stock was. You know, I was on the American Farriers team and I didn't know what a center of stock was. You know, and you know, I would never admit it back then, but I didn't know. And I wanted to be able to demonstrate what center of stock exactly was, you know, and I think that's, and being able to make items appear and reappear and lines and all that, I think are really good teaching aids to demonstrate, you know, what things are, such as center of stock, things like that.
How much did it change the way you think of feet when you started making those 3D models, and like the distortion on the computer would change? Like, that has to have some relation in real life, because it seems like we work in the same things. Like, we change something here and it affects something. You know, you change a heel and it affects a toe and such. Like,
and it does, you know, and it's going back to the comments on social media. People would criticize you know, that's not the way a real foot is, or, you know, real feet aren't symmetrical, you know, and all that, you know, and it's just, but it's so hard to make something asymmetrical on that model, and that's what I'm working on now. I'm working on a deal on symmetry, and, you know, and having the toe symmetrical, and I won't get into it too much, but that's kind of my next thing, but,
little teaser there.
Every time I click on something, it just, it's back to square one, and it's just like it's a disaster.
Really?
So it's just it's a lot of trial and error.
How many hours do you think you have in there?
Oh, I got 100, more than 100 probably in that thing. But it's not all at once. It's just like it's a Sunday afternoon, couple hours, Tuesday morning, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep. I'll work on it a little bit. It's not all at one whack, but it's a lot of time in it for sure. You can, oh, that worked.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And I have so many requests for people that want to use it in their lectures and want to demonstrate this, and I've made a lot of promises, and I'm kind of scared about it because it's just doing what they want and requesting is like it's pretty hard. It's just like Derek Gardner wanted me to do something on the distortion, and I've been working on it for a long time, and I still can't make the model cooperate. But it's one of those things. Oh yeah, that'll take me a few hours. I'll get it done, and then it doesn't work, and it'll work eventually, but it's a frustrating love-hate relationship.
You're kind of a yes man though.
Yeah, I do say
general.
yes.
You're a guy in general.
Oh,
I've been around you in public. Even people come up and it's nonstop or asking you for something. You're like, yeah.
I got a long list of people mad at me for projects I haven't done. You being one included. So I just.
Oh, I let you off the hook a while ago. You're a busy guy. It's easy though to let a guy like you off the hook because you're. It's not like you're sitting still. It's not like you're not doing anything. You're doing something all the time. You're generally. It's pretty funny to me that you're like one of my favorite people to follow, and you don't like. If I could give a good chunk of my followers to somebody, I'd be like, go watch what Austin's doing. Don't watch what I'm doing. Then I'm doing dumb shit. Austin's smart. You're the first guy I ever saw put a reel together, a Facebook video, and it was you. I think it was you. You did a few days of making a feather Damascus pocket knife. It was a while back, and it was man, that blew my mind that you edited a video together. It was
and look at you now.
This guy. This guy's next level. He's doing some stuff here.
No,
and that's so you kind of working now is you're pretty deep into this pad game, it seems.
Yeah, been working with FPD and came out with a pad, and and I my favorite thing to do is put a heart bar on a horse, and and it's so time consuming to put a heart bar on. You either got to weld the frog plate in, or you got to make a heart bar from scratch, and I think frog support really helps a lot of horses, and I put 1 million Castle plastic pads on and Myron McLean pads on over the years, and and it just kind of came up with my own little pad, and and it's been doing really good, and we're really excited about it, and working with FPD.
I haven't seen one in person.
Really
what makes it different?
Oh, I wanted to make something that was just easy to apply, and and just time saving really more than anything, and having the adequate amount of frog support, and just putting some impression material on and making something quick and easy to apply and versatile, and that was my main objective. And we've been getting really good reviews.
A lot of the older, I don't use a lot of pads anyway, so I'm not real educated on this, but it's a lot of the older frog support pads had a very wide frog.
Yeah.
And it seems like your frog support is a little bit more narrow. So I'm assuming so it's easier to fit up on horses.
Yeah.
Do you think a horse needs a lot of width to the frog support to work?
No, I don't think so. The ground bearing surface, you want some, but if it's too wide, it's difficult to fit. Then your heels are too wide, and then you go to fit your shoe, and then you got to grind a lot of the frog plate away. So having a little bit of heel check relief where you can fit those heels and fit the shoe like you normally would, and then just rivet your pad on, just saves a lot of time, and that was the main thing. Is I was scratching my own itch when I made the pads. I bought all these different frog support pads for a horse, Jake and I did, and none of them would work. You know, it's like, well, I need to do this to it, and I need to do that to it. And then, made one that was really versatile that would work on all feet, fronts and hinds, and, and you didn't have to carry a million different pads, in your truck just to make something work, and that was...
About how many different pads would a guy need to carry then in yours? Like, how many different sizes do you offer?
3 different sizes. We have a small and a medium now, and then we're going to do a large, and we're making the molds right now for that. Yeah, well, it's not really a draft, but it'll do a 4, 5, 6 really, on shoe size.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so it's bigger.
Is there any other frog support that big out there?
Yeah, I think so. Castle makes a big frog support pad. It's a gargantuan frog support pad.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But thick are yours? Are they like the same thickness as the leather?
They're thinner. They're 1/8 of an inch.
Oh, that's nice. That's very nice.
So basically, we're covering double
clips.
Double aught through 4. And that's it's going to be 85% of the horses. And then, if you're trying to fit anything smaller or bigger than that, it's not really worth making a mold for. So you kind of have to do the masses on that. And then,
is it something you do in-house, like making the pads, or is that somewhere you have to do that out of house?
No, we use an injection molder, and I did all the design work and all that, but they have huge injection molding machines that are half as long as my shop, that do multiple tons of press. It's quite the operation. And
Are you making the dies for it?
No, I'm not. I just do the design
That's like
work.
super high tolerance, isn't it?
Yeah, they have to be vented. They have to have ejector pins. It's a really elaborate system. I started out going to make the molds initially, and I was like, it was way over my head. And it's one thing I'm trying to learn and I want to do, but it's my redneck operation's not near good enough for doing all that. It's pretty technical stuff.
I like. So are you? You put on a picture or a video earlier. It was like, it looked like you were 3D printing one of the pads.
Yeah.
Is that just trying to see if the CAD drawing's good before you send it off to the die maker then?
Oh, the 3D printer is wonderful because I can create what I want on the screen and then 3D print it, and it's a really tough resin, and I can try them out. But the downside is it takes several hours to 3D print one pad. So it's perfect for prototyping. On a weekend I can prototype a pair of pads, and I can try them out. I'm like, that doesn't work. That didn't work. And I'll take it to Jake and see what he thinks, and Mark and Gene, different guys, and then I'd change this, and then I can make the changes on my computer screen, and then I can print them again, and then go from there. So that's really helps in the design process more than anything. It's not really practical for production, but I don't have to machine anything. Before I had 3D printer, I would machine a mold and then pour the mold and then pull it out of that. But I'd have a couple days in making a mold. But with the 3D printer, I just click and put it and just leave it alone, and overnight, and I come back the next morning, and I have exactly what was on my computer screen, and I can test it out. It's just,
have you tried 3D printing one of those foot models yet?
No, but it's on my list, and I want to machine one out. I think it's going to come out better machining it, and
like machine it out of aluminum or something.
Yeah, I'm going to machine a model out of it.
That would be sick.
Yeah. So that's on my list to do.
That'd be really
excited to see that.
But I gotta mark some things off the list before I start that project.
That'd be quite the run time, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Or just probably hard trying to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Like getting the dang thing in a vise.
Yeah, I'd probably put it in the 4th axis, and then it would just rotate around, and then you would have a sprue holding it. And then, yeah.
Magic. Just magic.
Just magic.
So it's something I wanted to ask you about is like, what's the difference? And how is it like the machine? Is it the CAD or what? Like your name stamps that you would make are just like perfect, total detailed. They look very, very good. Some are just rougher. Like where does that come from? Why are yours so much cleaner and better?
It's the precision tools using. I use bits that come to a perfect point. So if you use a bit that's dull or just has a little bit, maybe a 5/1000th tip, you can only make certain sharp corners, internal corners, because machining, internal corners are really hard on machining. So you have to have a really fast bit.
Are you doing it under a microscope?
No, the machine does it.
Watching it.
Yeah, no, you can't. There's so much coolant going everywhere. You can't see anything. So you just hope and pray. 25 minutes later, it's coming out right.
He's not guiding it himself.
I was thinking like when you had said you got these little dies or whatever, like that go down to this. I was thinking like in the finishing process, you're going in and cleaning them up.
Well, the machine
not
is
like the whole thing itself.
But you're running those bits at 12,000 RPM, and they get hot, and they're carbide, so you have to keep gallons of coolant just going on them, or and half the time they're breaking anyway, and you're replacing them. And that's one frustrating thing about making a stamp is, they're coming down to a perfect point, and you're working D2, and D2's just really tough to machine, and then the tips break all the time, and then so you have to replace those.
And
tips expensive?
Do you even know that it broke? Yeah. Like when it broke, or you just had to like restart? Huh?
Yeah, there's about 8 different tools that it goes through. It starts working. It starts with a bigger bit, and then it goes smaller and smaller and smaller, and then the tool paths get finer and finer and finer. But I'll have it stop on the tool change, and then that way I can check the bit and make sure it survived. And if it didn't survive, I'll rerun that cycle with that tool. Replace the tool and rerun that cycle, and then go on. But you can also have the machine check it, but it won't always catch a minor little chip in the tool or something. So it's just as easy just to have the machine stop before a tool change, and you can check the bit. Bit's good, then you let it tool change and then rock on.
Is it as easy as like somebody sends you a logo, like a JPEG or something, and then you upload it onto your computer, and then you can just cut it out, or no?
No.
Really?
Most of the time, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not doing it anymore. It's just there's so much computer work in it, and I have had more people send me embroidery, like they'll send me a picture of their shirt, embroidery logo on their shirt, and say want me to make a stamp out of that. And I'm like, that's just too much, Black and white images are pretty easy, but colors make things difficult. But it's a lot of erasing and picking things, and because the stamps are binary. There's either a line there or it's not. There's no shading. There's no grays. There's it's all line or no line, and that's one thing you have to realize when you're making a stamp. I mean, people will send you these elaborate logos with, shading and colors and, trees and things like that. And you can't do that because you have to, you only can create a line. And if it's just a blah in a piece of metal, you can't see it. It won't pronounce itself. But so the best touch marks are always the simplest ones, really. It's Riley's is borderline. It comes out good, but it's almost a little too busy. It's almost a little too busy, but it's just simple enough where it comes out.
But yours are still, when you make my stamps, is different than when other stamps I've had. Other stamps I've had have been a blob for all the branches and everything, And like the first time I put your stamp in is like he literally has a broken off branch like halfway. Like you nailed every little detail. So like when somebody sends you, and I do think it was a little bit like you dug your own grave there a little bit, because I remember you posted one time, it's like, you could even draw a sketch on a napkin and I'll get you a stamp made.
Yeah.
So when dude sent you a sketch on the napkin, how many hours do you think you had into his stamp by the time you were done?
It's not that bad. It just depends on what it is. Your stamp was bad, and Nigel Fennell's stamp was bad. He had the feathers. Oh my God, those feathers were just is almost as bad as the tree branches. But those two were pretty bad. So it's always those little details where you have to go in and pick the tool path. You have to go in and zoom in, and then you have to have that tiny little bit that comes down to a point, that's fragile, and then you're replacing that 3 or 4 times when you're making something like Riley's stamp, during the process.
So just each time, each time you made my stamp, you just knew you were gonna break a bunch of those fine bits.
Yeah, and you're surprised. Sometimes it'll survive, and sometimes it just. I don't know if you get a bad batch of bits or what, but it just, you run the same tool path, you run the same speed feeds, don't change anything, and then you'll break 3 in a row, and then one will survive 4 stamps. You just never know. It's pretty wild.
Well, could you imagine trying to heat treat those stamps, or those dies, those little cutters? I couldn't imagine
Well, they're carbide.
I barely understand heat treating a hammer, and that thing's pretty big.
Yeah, well, they're grinding them with diamond is what they're doing. It's carbide. Yeah, they have these diamond cutters that cut the carbide bits.
I just want people to get how, because I'm sure when they see, a stamp's gonna cost me $200 or whatever, they're like, oh, that's kind of a lot. It's like, there is so many hours.
Yeah.
Each one of those little cutters costs quite a bit. Not even to mention the machine that the cutter is sitting in. How much that bad dog cost. And then how many hours you got on top of it. It's I understand completely why you wouldn't want to do it too much, especially
and
for
the hard part
that are a bunch of complainers.
And then the heat treat's the hardest part on them. They're D2, and it's just, you got to have something that's going to hold up to cold stamping and hot stamping. And if you make something that hard, it's going to explode. Or if you don't make it hard enough, it's just going to mushroom, and the stamp's not going to hold up. So it's so hard finding that fine line on the heat treatment. And I've had both. I've had stamps that just didn't last and just mushroomed away, and then I've had a billion of them explode, and then you got to make another one and replace it. It's just that's the most frustrating part. Just making something that small, trying to hold up to that much abuse is really hard.
I have no delusions on mine of it's a consumable item.
Yeah.
I stick that thing underneath of a 400-pound power hammer.
Big red.
And drive it into a rounding hammer. It's just some of the lettering on the bottom is gonna get a little smudged after a while. This is gonna happen. I'm not.
I think that's better.
That Jay, a Jay would break a punch a year. He would go through a name stamp a year. So I think that's probably what you get out of them.
Yeah. And I think putting it under the power hammer and that quick hit is probably better for your stamp than anything. When people put it on there and they let it heat up and then they look at it and then they hit it and then, it's losing its heat treatment. And, I think it's better to be quick.
I never thought about that too much. But on that, do you think that happens to guys' 4 punches too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they get too hot. S7 can take the shock. You can punch cold all day long and your punch won't screw up, but you punch yellow hot steel, it's going to start mushrooming pretty quick. It's one thing I learned a long time ago.
And so that's something I get people to ask me that all the time. Like do I think there's a big difference between S7 and H13 for making fullers or punches out of or pritchels? Have you found a big difference in them, and have you found certain ones that you use for certain things?
I've almost never used that H13. I don't even know anything about it. I just always used S7. I've grown up around Jim Poor, and he's always used S7, and that's just one thing that I've almost always used is S7 stuff. So I just can't think of any instance where I've had any H13 where I've used any of it. And that's just kind of just learning from Jim, but I had no reason for it. What about you? Have you?
Did you try making the name stamps out of S7 at all?
Yeah, I made S7 for a while, and then I changed over to D2. But the D2's quite a bit harder than S7. It'll hold up a lot better. It's
So why do you think we don't make like head stamps or drifts out of the D2 then? It's just not good for the shock, like the shock that you guys are talking about.
It'll explode. It's hard. It heat treats around 61, 62. When you let it air harden, it's pretty hard. S7's going to be 56, 57. It can take it to abuse, but 55, 56 generally what S7 is. But D2 is just. I know Jim Poor made some pritchels out of D2, and it didn't last long. I don't know whatever happened, but I remember him 20 years ago making a batch of D2 pritchels, and he didn't make it anymore. But I think they're probably too hard, for sure.
Interesting.
Yep. That striking end's got to have a little bit.
Goes down a pritchel.
Yeah, that striking end's got to be soft, and you're not going to get that with D2. You can't temper it back enough. It stays hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that
Learn
makes
something new every day.
a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what else is on the horizon for you then?
I'm really looking forward to the Calgary thing. So that's coming up. And next weekend is the Alabama contest, and we're going to go to that. So that's kind of the next two things coming up pretty quick. And then it'll be.
Do you have any words that you'd like to say for? Do you have any words you'd like to say for like anybody going and competing at Spruce that you'd like to say beforehand?
I can't think of anything right offhand, but I just want to see some good horseshoeing, and want everybody to have a fair shake, and that's what it's all about. And I'm going to do my best to make sure the right winner is crowned, and I know Spud thinks the same thing, and we're going to work together and try to make it the fairest contest possible. But I know there's going to be a lot of emotions going on, and a lot of money at stake, and there's going to be some upset people. But that's one thing I don't like about judging is just you got to pick a winner, and that's just a part of it. It's
something I've been kind of thinking about and pondering about is you didn't make like the specimen shoes for the contest. Is that hard to judge a contest when like all the specimen shoes are already there and then they're getting picked out of a pool? Like how hard is that going to be? You know
it's
what I mean?
Not hard because you're always, whether it's your specimen or someone else's, you're still judging it against the specimen, and
okay,
it doesn't matter. And when it was pictures at Calgary in the convention, they would have drawings, and you judged it to the drawings. So there was no. That was the ultimate test: is the closest shoe to the drawing or the closest shoe to the specimen wins. And just the hardest part is knowing the details of a specimen that you didn't make and the hard parts of that specimen. And I'm going to make all the shoes. I haven't made them all. I've made some of them, but I'm going to make all the shoes before I go. That way I know what to look for and the hard parts of those shoes. And it was kind of cool watching the AFT make some of those shoes. You watching Chris Madrid make something and he's struggling on something, that element's hard on that shoe.
Yeah.
So it's something to look for. But but I firmly believe you have to make them in order to judge them properly. Just you can't judge a heel cock if you've never made a heel cock. If that makes sense. And so it just
Absolutely.
you have to know what's important and the hard parts of that element in order to make it fair.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Well, Austin, a question that we like to ask our guests is, we call it the Mount Rushmore. Who are 4 people that you look up to or have influenced you through your career or your life that you would consider on your Mount Rushmore?
No, that's a tough one. First would be my dad, for sure. He's helped me so much and been supportive. Others, Mark, obviously.
He even helped me a lot when I lived down there.
Yeah, just working together with him and just, I wouldn't be where I am today without Mark, just taking me under his wing and really, teaching me a lot. I'd have to put Jim Poor in that category too. He's really helped me, just super unselfish, just anything you ask for, you call him. As you guys know, he'll just help you just any way he can.
Yeah.
And then Jim Keith too. Jim Keith's been a hero of mine, and he's really helped me. And so those 4 guys, and then there's a lot more, but those 4 come to mind. And
Yeah, it's always hard one to put 4 people on the pedestal when there could be, 15 or 20.
Yeah, and that's why I like making tools. Is, Jim Poor and Jim Keith, been my heroes, and and just I've always watched them making tools and been intrigued by them doing that, and it's one thing I just tried to implement in my life as well. And just watching those guys work really hard and make some cool stuff, So it's been exciting.
No, I think it is a really cool deal, Austin, because you've done the traditional climb just like all of them have. Of that, you won conventions, you've won Calgary, you've gone and done really good things, and now you've kind of given back to our trade like really well. You have a great line of tools. You're coming out with things for the horse, with your pads. And even on top of it, like, man, how many people have their name on the side of an anvil they created?
And that's been fun,
That's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
pretty damn
And
cool, man. Like,
and John Harshbarger would be on my Mount Rushmore too. He's the salt of the earth. Just really great guy to deal with, and just he supports our industry so much. And and I really got to know him when we did the anvil thing together, and it's been a great thing. And John's just been really supportive, and he supports our organizations and WCB and AFA and TPFA, and he's a great all around guy. And
that's actually a very good
if I get a 5th guy, I want to
transition
put it
there too.
Yeah.
That that's actually, you were like a perfect guy for this podcast as well, is because you are involved with these 2 people quite a bit. And John at Wellshot is now one of our sponsors for our podcast, and like
Awesome.
huge thanks to John. Like you're saying, John is so big on supporting back our industry, and it's like,
yeah,
it's a cool thing because it's not like John's reaching out with us, like he's trying to reach out to a new crowd. Really, we are the kind of competition crowd a little bit with our podcast, and John's very well known throughout us, and John's just trying to help us out and help out what we're doing and get the word out of what we're doing. So it's a huge thing. And another one of our new sponsors is the World Championship Blacksmiths.
Awesome.
The Trinket family has helped us out, and so that is really cool. And like, it's 2 people that you're very involved with too, and so it's a very cool circle of people that have been brought to us in this farrier world. So it's actually a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, it's so fun to be a part of it and see everyone help one another, and you don't see that in other trades, and it's so cool to see, for sure.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
100%.
Man, you're one of those people, Austin. You've always been willing to help. I always send you a bunch of annoying messages, and You've always been super helpful to me and everybody else. So, man, I know we all appreciate it. And thanks for sitting down with us and taking your evening and talking to us.
And I just want to pass along what all the other guys have taught me, you know, and it becomes your turn to pass on the information. And, you know, and I still absorb the information, but, you know, just over the years, just guys like Jim Poor and Jim Keith and Mark Milster and those guys just teaching me, and then I want to pass that information along as well. And it's what makes it worthwhile. Let's put it that way.
Well, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing it, man. Thank you, Austin, for hanging out with us, and thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. See ya.